What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Weekly Cheddar. Jake Shavink here, as always, with you guys. The draft is over, and I know we've kind of done a little bit of this already on kind of the main channel and all that, but I wanted to kind of put the full thing together of breaking down this Packers 2025 NFL draft class and kind of what it means, what we could see down the line in terms of decision making from the front office and kind of how things all fit together. So we're going to kind of take a little bit of a trip down and kind of piece that all together. And yeah, it should be a good time. Hopefully we get some folks rolling in here. I know there's a couple in here. Adam Huddle's already here with the green and golden comment, which is chef's kiss. We don't, it was destiny, right? It was destiny that was going to happen, and we got it, which is really exciting. Let's dive right in, shall we? To start some things. We got to start with Golden for sure. I think what his role could be. We can talk about kind of obviously his game, which I think most of you, if not all of you, have already seen the video on my channel and kind of seen already enough people break down Golden's game where you have a pretty good kind of grasp of what he's going to provide. Right, and I think it's a lot. I think the 4.29 isn't nothing, but I don't think it's anywhere close to everything, right? It's the through break transition efficiency, right? Running the in and out breakers at a high level and reception perception. Matt Harmon has already put this out of like it's a high success rate of what he's done on those in and out breakers. And again, the film will show that, of course, but it is nice kind of having that, as a kind of reference point of like, yes, okay, I am seeing this type of success. Again, gears down really quickly. The throttle control is pretty good, right? But when you look at, an improving release package strategy and adaptability, I think is something that I think is really, really important for him if he wants to be the X, right, going forward. He's probably going to slot in with some Z snaps right away. To me, opposite whether or not Dobbs or Wicks becomes the starter there. Which again, Dobbs has dealt with some injuries and concussions, and those aren't nothing. So hopefully he's ready to go when training camp and everything gets underway. But again, I think with Golden at the catch point too, you see him kind of extend outside his frame pretty well and adjust and track the football and get himself in opportune spots, jump up and through with good technique. Shield the ball from defenders when he needs to. All of that I think is really clean, and what makes him, I think, such an easy projection to the league is because of how well he does so many different things. And it's kind of like the requisites for making it in the league. And I think that is important for him to continue to keep checking those boxes. He looks like he's an extending player based on what we've seen in the first off, the jump with the hand technique from Houston to Texas, and then the jump from rotational player at Texas to I'm the star, I'm the one. For Texas down the stretch to kind of carry us where we got to. And who knows if he hadn't gotten hurt in the Ohio State game, what would have happened? I would have loved to see him play that full game and see what the numbers would have been. I think we would have obviously cracked the 1,000-yard threshold for the season. So yeah, I think obviously you've probably been talked to death with how I think talented he is and how high the floor is and how I think refined the game is, right, in terms of how he plays. So I think that's probably the most exciting thing about him. And, his growth and development to potentially be an X is really what I think everybody's going to watch. I think you could put him in the wide receiver 1 bucket for this team immediately. Doesn't mean maybe he wouldn't benefit from having a wide receiver 1 on the other side. Again, it would be great to see Golden and Christian Watson play together. I don't know if we're going to get that. I hope we get that. But it will be interesting to follow in terms of Golden. Again, if you want the kind of the full breakdown of everything in terms of play to play and what he does well, visually, and you want to see all that, it's on the other channel. It's live. It's been live. So I hope you guys get over there for that. That's the only one so far that we've done, but we're going to get to the rest of them there. Let's quickly dive into Savion. Well, one more thing on Golden, right, which I've kind of brought this up, and I'll put it on the screen for this just in case folks find this. It is what I'd like to see, and hopefully we can pull it up here on the presentation view, but I don't think so. Hold on. I just want to pull up these stats really fast of the wide receiver position and some of the yards per out run, first downs per target, first downs per out run, right? If you have high yards per out run, chances are, right, if you're Trey Harris, you're going to be high on the, the first downs per out run. That's usually how it goes. Restrepo, is still decently high there. And even Armstrong, not too bad. But when you have these first downs per target, you're going to get a bucket. You're kind of the team's go-to guy in a lot of scenarios because you are running probably, the big boy routes on second and third downs and getting open and getting targeted and converting at a high level. So Golden and Ibuka, it's not surprising that both of these guys are in that tier, right? And same with Restrepo, of like he was kind of the middle of the field, go get a bucket type of player. And obviously these two were as well. So again, Golden has plenty of he has it. And what that obviously, in terms of separation, in terms of catch point work and technique, he has a lot of that. And then there's still a good feel for kind of a little bit of wiggle after the catch and kind of processing the field in front of him really well once he's got the football. And I think that is something that he's only honing in now and starting to get a real good feel for. So again, I'm impressed of what Matthew Golden can do, right? And I think that's going to hopefully help elevate this passing offense, not just in the short term with Watson out, but continue to do so when hopefully Watson returns. And again, maybe that 4.29 speed is legit, and maybe he starts to play to it a little bit more at the next level. And we see a little bit more of that acceleration. And again, he does a great job of treating everything as a vertical route. And because of that, teams are still probably going to fear him a little bit of, okay, is he going to try to win down the field? We have to respect that. And then here he is gearing down on curl and comeback routes, which I think can get a little more efficient, right? He isn't the biggest receiver, so he should be able to gear down a little bit better on those. So we'll be watchful on some of the vertical plane routes, but very clearly on the horizontal stuff and even down the field, he is really, really good. Some of that late pressure in the routes, some of that, leverage attacking, he does a really nice job. The tempo is really good against off coverage to kind of lull you to sleep, but he moves defenders away from where he wants to attack really well. So again, it's a very tidy game that Matthew Golden has kind of put together, especially in his time at Texas, which is only one season. And again, he's a true junior coming out of college. So, an early declare. With the COVID stuff, he's in especially early declare. So, but I really like what I've seen from him. Savion Williams, let's go to him now. Man, there's tons of intrigue with this, right, in terms of how he can be deployed, right? When you look at Savion, what do you see? Some spectacular catches, right, in terms of winning above the rim and playing to that size that he is. And we'll bring up his I will bring up his RAS momentarily, but it's kind of wild to watch a guy that big. Again, as I said, gear down that quickly, get up to speed very quickly, and just kind of go moss people to catch point, right? And so, man, it's the possibilities, I think, are kind of endless. Of, he just, you want him to be more than a gadget player, right? You want to see more big boy, actual wide receiver stuff. But you get to, what he can do with wildcat snaps and the acceleration and the quicks and making people miss and just doing so in this frame at 6'3", 222 is insane work. And he's probably going to get some of those, I'm getting the jet sweep stuff. I'm going in orbit motion. They're going to toss it to me sometimes. I'm going to have to make a play like that and make a couple people miss in space. And that's going to be maybe my game. I become part of the RPO game if that sticks around in Green Bay of I'll get some of the quick stuff. I'll get those RPO bubble screens and some of that where he gets to attack after the catch with his speed. And obviously it's hard not to, when you see a TCU uniform and a guy, a bigger guy with some rare athleticism, not look to Quentin Johnston. And certainly the catch technique is kind of reminiscent of like, he can make some of the really tough stuff look easy and some of the easy stuff look a little more difficult with the catch technique. But it's that rare athleticism. It's flashing some really impressive routes on film of like, late stem pressure to kind of move the defender and win, to open space as a route runner, and then make a fantastic adjustment. I forget if that was like, I don't remember who that was against. It wasn't Texas, because that would have been the year before, maybe Oklahoma State. But anyway, just make some spectacular plays. And like, he reminds me of kind of a mixture of Keon Coleman and Quentin Johnston, where it's like, he's just not completely there yet. And the other thing is, if he blocks in the 6'3", 7'8", 222-pound frame, who might have a nice little move piece on the team, right? Of like, hey, this is because what the Rams used to do with Ben Skoranek is they would have him, kind of line up with the fullback. He'd get kind of some of the insert blocks, and he'd be working to the A or B gap to help out as a blocker in the run game, but also then be able to work to space off of play action really well and be able to attack post catch. And Savion will even do a better job because he's a better athlete in terms of linear explosiveness than a Penn Skoranek would be. Of like, yeah, if you can move this guy around the formation and create matchups and offer him space and let him attack with it, it's a dangerous offense that you could put together. And I think that's why they brought him, right? And a lot of people talk about how creative you could be with his usage. It fires the imagination with a lot of the best coordinators in the league, right? You look at Sean McVay, you look at Shanahan, you look at Reed, LaFleur's in there. Like, Kevin O'Connell would have maybe been interesting too. And so here he is. And what I think is going to be interesting is to see if he gets, and I know some people were, we talked about this on Derailed a little bit of like, is he going to get any reps at X? And it's like, well, if he can be a long-term perimeter receiver at all, this is a massive win in the third round. A massive win. Right, in getting 2 picks at receiver, maybe you think these are your 2 boundary guys going forward, or maybe you think one's a boundary guy, one's a move piece, but are going to be major factors in your offense, even in a year or 2 down the road. Golden more so right away than Savion later, but it does kind of fire the imagination of like what the usage could look like, because then if that usage is a lot of the gadgety stuff in year 1, it offers Jayden Reed the opportunity to do a bit more for you, right? He's not worried about as much about that as he's worried about, going to make plays on the field and making sure he has, he brings the hands a little bit more in his third season than his second one, or at least, down the stretch of his second one. So I'm thrilled to see how this goes with Savion, because there's a lot of untapped potential and rare athleticism to work with. And again, if he can put a lot of stuff together, which again, is that asking a lot? Perhaps, but it could be a true lookout situation. So, big, fast, tougher to tackle, explosive, throttle control, like high point to catch the football. Like there's so many high end stuff there that you go, yeah, I mean, why not take the swing and see what we can do So, yeah, let's go to something else really quick, and we're going to talk about kind of this shift a little bit more with Anthony Belton and what this could look like going forward as well, of like, is this going to be the change that we think it's going to be? And I think it could be. And what we're talking about is this sort of cyclical NFL of like, this is the passing game got too much. We're going to clamp down on it. We're going to clamp on space. We're going to make you go down the field, 16, 17 times and score if you're going to pass. And teams are like, okay, well, we'll just get bigger in the run game, right? As you're adding more pass rushers at 240 pounds, 280 pounds, 290 in the middle of the defense. You're getting smaller and faster at linebacker to combat all this space and sort of squeeze to the perimeter and kind of shut things down out there where there's been a lot of free access to it, of like, okay, well, let's just get bigger up front and push people around and run the football and do under center play action and have some movable pieces around the offense, like that has been a shift. And maybe, just maybe, the Green Bay Packers are a team that are now starting to embrace it. And I think that comes with adding Aaron Banks. I think that comes with adding Anthony Belton here because, again, we kind of, this has been a topic of discussion, of course, of like, hey, is he going to be a tackle of the future? Is he going to be a guard right away? Like, is it going to be both things? Is it going to be one of those two? Which is it if it is? Like, how do we figure that out? And I do feel like there was a lot of talk about, like, I don't know if it was Goody or somebody else who said, like, Banks and Belton, we want to think of them as laying and sitting. And that, I think, should tell you, right, they want these guys at guard to push people around. And maybe Belton can get down to 325, 326 and can drop 10 pounds and maybe feel like he's a little springier while still also having all of the finishing ability that you see on film of, like, pancake blocks and looking for work to send people to the ground and, like, playing through the whistle and having insane grip strength and control when guys try to convert speed to power on him and all of that stuff. And I think in Mobile, he did a better job of this, of, like, better strike timing combined with the footwork. Everything was working as one, and he just kind of shut people down in Mobile on several reps, where it felt like on film with Anthony Belton, it was kind of like, okay, well, is he going to be able to refine the hand usage? Can he not bear hug people? Can we get that first strike in there way, way, way more often? If so, we've really got something here, because the run game can get more vertical, right? You're going to be able to run maybe some duo stuff, which we don't see a lot, but we have seen it before. And again, you run some power, but you still have inside zone baked in. Right, you still have inside zone baked in where some of these guys are springy enough athletes, and Banks especially, of, like, working to the second level, getting out in space, potentially being the puller, and you have guys like Belton who can pin down one side of the offensive line and kind of let this run game flourish into, you don't know what we're bringing, but we'll bring something. And we got three guys in the middle in Banks, Jenkins, and Belton that are going to smash your face in and create all kinds of problems. So, and hopefully build a wall against interior pressure so Jordan Love has a lot of clean pockets where you're able to let Walker and Tom this season control a lot of the stuff on the perimeter, where you have those three who are going to be able to shut things down on the interior for presumably under center play action and shot plays down the field to Savion or Dobbs or Golden, or maybe even Reed and maybe Wicks as well, but whoever it may be, under center stuff, running leak for Tucker Kraft, right? Getting him in space to make some plays as well. Like, there are going to be opportunities, and having three dudes in the middle who are very, very big, very, very powerful, and, have a ton of experience. Banks has already got his experience in the league. Jenkins has played center, and Belton's got a lot of college experience under his belt of, like, maybe this is fine to move him to the interior, and you're going to be okay with that. And feels comfortable doing so, and that's why they pick him in the second round. So I think that the offense, again, it was shifting anyway, right? Last season with the acquisition of Josh Jacobs, where you saw Josh Jacobs' splits of, like, yeah, he's running a lot of zone, but he's running almost an equally amount of gap power stuff. And, are they going to integrate that at all into the run game? And they did immediately. And you go, okay, well, this philosophy shift that the Rams tried to do last year, where it was Dotson, Avila, Jonah Jackson, boom, let's get a ton of push up front. Green Bay seems to be adopting that strategy as well. So excited to see, what Belton can do in that role, and kind of how things come together offensively, because it's definitely continues to be a philosophy shift. Adam Huddle saying he can't wait for the Anthony Belton versus Tyleik Williams battles. Well, there you go. Yeah, Tyleik Williams being the first-round pick for the Detroit Lions could be a lot of fun matchups where, Tyleik Williams has been a dominant force against the run. He hasn't unlocked much as a pass rusher, but he can be a dominant force taking on doubles. And, how he handles, maybe a combo of Belton and Jenkins certainly will be fun to watch, who can control the line of scrimmage. And I think the Lions adding Williams when they already have McNeil, I know he's coming off injury, but, they very clearly understand that they're going to have to control the line of scrimmage. in order to keep advancing the postseason. I think Green Bay at least noticed that on the offensive side of the ball. We'll kind of talk maybe more about the defensive side, but it certainly felt that they had a plan offensively coming into this draft of like, this is what we're going to do. So yeah, so that's that. Yeah, so the changing pass rush, right? Green Bay adds two guys that are maybe not quite what we've seen them add before. Baron Sorrell, a little bit more so, right? In terms of, the RAS, right, is still there, right? 6'3", 256 isn't the smallest, right? It is more on their spectrum of things with how they want to play, but it's not, it's not 240, it's not 245. Like, we can hang with this, and explosive and quick. The arm length is really the question, right? 32 and a quarter, right? Can he control stuff at the line of scrimmage? And maybe, he can do so. And I think what Sorrell really does a nice job of, to me, is combating the arm length deficiencies with, stutter steps and things to get the tackles off balance, to where like they're worried, the tackles are more worried about, where their landing spot is and where they are in a good position to recover. And then you shoot the hands, and then you have control, and then you can counter off of that if they somehow recover, right? Because you already have inside position and control. And that's where I feel like Sorrell does a lot of good damage there, is getting to the contact phase with a great strike and good positioning to also play off of it if you can't win with that bull rush. And that's something that I think he will, need to continue to refine, because he has worked around the edge before. He has won with some high side rush, but having that other thing in your bag is very, very helpful for you. No question about it. So I do like that. And obviously seems like a phenomenal dude on top of it, right? Everybody's probably seen the press conference already, which I think is very, very cool. So yeah, I mean, Sorrell in that regard, really, really good. Colin Oliver, and then we get to this, right, where he's like, oh, he's not 245, 240. And then Colin Oliver is 240, right? And it's like, well, this is different. This isn't exactly what we've been looking for. And so now the imagination's firing of like, ooh, what did Hafley say that he wanted? That Goody was like, yeah, I'll go get you one. Well, a guy with explosiveness, twitch, bend, around the edge of kind of an ace pass rusher who, I don't know on base downs if he's going to play Sam linebacker, but if he does, it makes a lot of sense at 240, right? Where you're still bulked up enough to, in theory, handle blockers, play with some range, cover the tight end, right? Run to the perimeter if need be, cross the face of guys off of play action to go rush, like, with all these responsibilities that the Sam linebacker has. 240 with this athleticism, I think certainly can track in that regard. And then coming on the field when it's 3rd and 7 and longer of like, yeah, go get a bucket for me, go get a sack. Like, I need you to, flash the ghost move and dip around the corner and sack the QB. And like, Oliver can certainly do that. And so like, it is kind of adding that element of rusher where he's not going to be on the field in base downs unless it's at Sam linebacker, which again, at 240, like, this is kind of modern day linebacker stuff of like, not modern, but now modern again of, yeah, you could use these bigger guys because teams are going to be running the football more. But again, I do think at Sam linebacker, it still offers him stuff of like a little more comfort of like playing on the line of scrimmage, right? And kind of being in a position to get after the QB if necessary, but also having the range and IQ and instincts to kind of be able to do multiple things when asked to as a Sam linebacker. So that gives you, again, for a Green Bay pass rush that felt like, the 4-down line was really good on early downs. Van Ness, scary. Defend the run, right? Control the gaps. And then when it came time to go get buckets, like Hafley had to get creative, walk up Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker, mug the front a little bit, and then who's dropping, who isn't, and you create confusion. Whereas Oliver, you don't have to mug him up in the A gap at all times. He can win with some high side rush and win with an inside move and wreak havoc from the edge in obvious situations where that feels like something that they really didn't have. And it was a massive discussion. I will hold the L on saying that I didn't think they were going to ever go this route, but it seems they have. And the 5th round is a better spot to do it, I think, for a true rotational rusher than it is, doing so in the 1st round, where it's like, yeah, he's not going to play a lot of our snaps. But in the 5th, it's kind of like, okay, he can come in and do this at certain times. It works. It works. So, yeah, I love this deviation. Would it have been cool to get someone like Stewart, or obviously as a Raku or Green or other of these guys who can rush? Yes, but in the 2nd round, it feels like Green Bay has found the starter at right guard in Anthony Belton. This guy wouldn't have really been a starter. He would have been a sub-package rotational rusher, and it feels like going to get a guy much later to do so, if he can do it, is going to look really, really smart down the line. So, yeah, a little bit of a changing pass rush for these guys. And then, right, we go a little bit later to looking at Warren Brinson, right, and Micah Robinson, and you look later in the draft of like, okay, this guy might be able to, work in some pass rush. And I think he plays with really good leverage of like, this may be a nose tackle potentially, right? And when you look at the RAS, we kind of talked about this with Derek Harmon a lot of like, hey, could we be in a position to a 6'5", 315 guy? That's not very far off of what Derek Harmon is of like, and we kind of talked about him playing a little bit of one tech with the moonlighting at 3, and Warren Brinson could be that guy who plays with better leverage, and can shed blocks and maybe control the point of attack a little bit better than a Kenny Clark, and obviously better than a Brooks or a Wyatt, because those guys are more true 3 techs, and maybe even Brooks is even a little bit further out from the 3 tech of like the 4i or the 5 tech. Maybe he was maybe better suited to be in a 3-4, but like you still have him as a higher floor player in the rotation, where Brinson, violent hands, springy player, as you see, a pretty good athlete overall of like, hey, this guy could also maybe do a couple things of like, hey, can you go get the quarterback for us, but also can you control the point of attack? And obviously Green Bay goes and gets his teammate Nazir Stackhouse, who also did that at a high level of like, yeah, I can do some nose tackle stuff as well. So maybe the Georgia guys are here to kind of save the day, perhaps, for Green Bay of like, hey, we're gonna kind of be the guys that help you anchor and hunker down on early downs to then get yourself in a position to throw Edgerrin Cooper out there to blitz, or throw Colin Oliver out there to rush. It's like maybe the Georgia guys are there to do just that. And when you get to a Micah Robinson, who I feel like, is he somebody who you're going to ask a lot of in year one? No, of course not. What I think he's going to do, and I'm pulling up his RAS now. He is a little bit smaller, right? The 5'10" and 7'8", 183, and maybe he is still somebody who could challenge for the nickel spot. Maybe he gets to be a safety. I don't know what the plan is. I don't think they're going to stick him at outside corner, right? Like I don't think that's the vision. But he did allow a 52.8 passer rating last season. And if he's going to be the guy that wears a lot of hats on the defense, I think that could be fun. I think if it is indeed doing what I hope it's doing in giving Javon Bullard a little bit of push, a little bit of competition, so be it. Like, I think he needs it. Like, I know that we want to be patient with him, and I really liked the pick at the time of Bullard, but like, kind of need to put up now. You got to show us a little bit of something in year 2, because we're going to have guys behind you, and that safety room isn't going anywhere. Oladapo played well in the final game of the season. Evan Williams looks good. Xavier McKinney, like there's not going to be a lot of space for you. So Micah Robinson, at the very least, some speed, some ball skills into the room of like, hey, a little bit of a nudge for Bullard of like, hey, let's get this figured out for you. So at the very least, that with Micah Robinson. And I know there's one more that we need to talk about before we're out of here and kind of tie this all together. But John Williams, no, not the great composer, but John Williams, the tackle from Cincinnati, who I think has allowed only like 2 or 3 sacks and then a couple dozen pressures the last couple seasons. And again, I know it was a lower tier conference. It's not the SEC. It's the Big 12, though, which I think you could stack on par with the ACC, and that kind of plays to the Belton thing. But I think John Williams, if he is competition at guard, great. If he's a swing tackle down the line, perfect, because I think he has better hand strikes and hand placement than Belton does at this point, of like generating early control in the rush and kind of working to maintain it because you've had a good strike already. And so that's where I feel like John Williams can come into play a little bit more, whereas Belton, maybe we got to continue that work. So that's the only thing there, which I very clearly the plan is to have a player like Belton take over at guard. But again, at 6'4", 322, you're maybe not ruling that out for John Williams either. So excited to see how this all comes together. And I want to finish here. Maybe it's a shorter show, and that's totally fine. And maybe the folks will find this, and obviously, the subs, we'll keep building that up. But what this draft class means to me is, and there were a lot of memes about this, and I shared some on the main channel, was like, hey, like, this is kind of go time offense. Like, urgency is for you guys. The defense played well, more so down the stretch. You guys were kind of a little disjointed down the stretch. And so, like, we need the offense to have the urgency, not the defense right now. And I think part of that is, okay, Belton needs to come in and take this right guard spot, which was an issue for us last season. And maybe the plan is long-term, right? You look at Jordan Morgan to be the left tackle and the kind of shifting along the offensive line that might take place over the next season and a half, where Elton Jenkins, will see where he's at. But I do think there are certainly a lot of questions about that, of like, what's going to be the direction. And there was a lot of questions coming in of like, what would Green Bay do if one of the better tackles is on the board? I think why Joseph Gleason asking, why did Brinson fall? I do think there have been injuries, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was part of it, because he certainly, let me see. No, I do think there were injuries. I think there were injuries at some point, because he's obviously been in a long time rotation with a lot of the guys at Georgia, which is just how it goes, right? You have Carter and you have Davis in there and Wyatt, right? Like, all these guys have been already in there, and you have these guys who kind of stuck around for 4 years, 5 years, because they really never grabbed the starting role. Like, there is partially that, but I do think his he has had injuries, and obviously the snap count is very high, so you don't get the full sample size of like multiple seasons of play where you go, okay, is this a flash in the pan a bit because and he's ready to go because he's in the rotation, or is this something where consistency can be built? But from what I've seen from him, I really like it, and I'm excited for y'all to see the film room on him very, very soon as well. Not over here, but here we'll have some other stuff for sure, but over on the main one is where those breakdowns will be. But hopefully that answered that question, Joseph. And again, the urgency that you come back to on the offensive side of the ball, right? We kind of talked about it. Like, are Walker and Tom going to both get extensions? Doesn't seem like it if they have a plan for Jordan Morgan. And even if they do and that doesn't come to pass, you can obviously still draft a tackle next year, right? There is going to potentially be that opportunity for you to go make that happen if you so desire. But it does kind of seem like Walker and Tom aren't both getting extensions, which to me would signal that Tom is the one who's going to get it and Walker might not. But again, I have no problem. This might be the fifth time that Goody's drafted multiple offensive linemen, and I don't hate that. That is a great problem to have when you have too many good offensive linemen. Most teams have the other problem where they don't have enough good offensive linemen and they're scrambling all the time. And I just like that Green Bay stays proactive at what is a really, really important position group. So I like that. I think it's a good plan for the future. And again, obviously, staying on the offense, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson are both free agents after this season. Now, maybe Watson's the guy you bring back of the two because you feel confident in Golden. That makes sense. But if you don't bring either back, it's like that's why they drafted Savion and Golden. Like, they need a more explosiveness in the room and reliability as well. And Reed and Wicks are going to be free agents after 2026. So all this is going to turn around pretty quickly of like who's coming back, who isn't. And Green Bay, I don't think will have any problem reloading the room kind of like they have and continue to do so if they feel like they're not getting the results from the young guys who came in and kind of the approach of like, hey, we don't have a wide receiver one, but okay, but like who's going to step up and make plays? And it's like, well, if three guys are going to drop 6-7 passes all year, and of course, really unfortunately, the one guy who doesn't really drop anything all year gets hurt, that kind of throws a wrench in the plans, and you got to be ready and prepared for it. So it did feel like the urgency was there on that side of the football, and very clearly with a lot of extensions potentially coming up, a lot of potential free agents from that 2022 class. Not to mention, again, Kingsley Enagbare, is he going to come back? Like, do they feel comfortable with Sorrell kind of taking his role? They might. And now you have a guy as a pass rusher and Oliver who's going to be in that room. So, like, that might be one less spotted edge rusher. So it does feel like a good urgency push. Now, there are a couple things that I didn't like. I don't like not getting pretty much anything at corner. Like, I know Robinson's played there, but I feel like he's a nickel or a safety. I don't think he's going to be a boundary guy. So I don't love that, especially if Ja isn't someone who's coming back. I know that's we snip, snap. Like that's been the entire offseason with Ja, and hopefully he comes back, because if he comes back, then I feel like the room in the secondary is pretty full and ready to roll with him, Hobbs, Valentine, and Nixon. That feels a lot better than saying Hobbs, Valentine, Nixon, right? Having Ja in the room means a lot. And it means you have two guys who, if Bullard isn't finding it at nickel and Robinson didn't really show much, and maybe he's on the practice squad year one of like, hey, no, we have two players in Hobbs and Nixon who have played the slot before and can do so. And we feel comfortable with that because we have, whoever it may be, Ja and Valentine, let's say, on the outside, like we feel comfortable with that as the starter. So I think and again, not even, I think if they were going to take a corner, they would have had to do it early, right? And that was very clear. I think we kind of talked about that quite a bit towards the tail end of this thing of like, hey, if they're going to make that move, they should make it early. And, with Will Johnson's injuries, obviously that was somebody they weren't comfortable with. Ben Morrison's injuries probably as well. Obviously didn't get a chance to take someone like Hunter, but Revel, maybe they weren't comfortable with the injuries with him either, and they thought maybe he was like too big, too tall, where they were a little concerned about the transition quickness, which I think is fair, and maybe he wasn't going to be able to do everything they wanted to do in their scheme. So that leaves just a couple guys, right? That leaves Trey Amos, who, again, maybe they just didn't like. It's very possible they didn't like him. And that kind of left maybe someone like Noel Williams, who Chiefs trade up in front of you to go get him. And yeah, and again, maybe they didn't like the functional athleticism and the testing at corner of like, yeah, this is just Azareye'h Thomas isn't who we want in the room. And then Darian Porter's too raw, and we don't think he's got enough experience playing the position to select him. So I do agree here with Adam where he says this corner class was a bit questionable. Just felt like the one guy who really didn't have a lot of questions, they had a chance to take him twice. But again, we'll see. Again, they clearly weren't interested, or just happened to be more interested in a couple of their players on both occasions, and that's how it goes sometimes. But yeah, to me, it wouldn't have been a reach to take Amos at 23. But yeah, I don't think there was anybody that I was dying to get on the roster on day 3, because again, I felt like there were a lot of guys who were nickel players, right? Jacob Parrish, Kobe Bryant was 180, right? Quincy Riley, was he a nickel or not? I think there was still some debate on that before this, kind of the thing. And then Mello Dotson was somebody we liked, and then the testing happened, and it was like, no, thank you. So yeah, there were definitely questions across the board at corner, and that's why it felt a little more shallow. Where, and again, Justin Wally from Minnesota is somebody who I think everybody kind of figured out the name and saw he was a little more underrated once the process came to an end. But again, he was a little smaller too. He's like 5'9" and change and 186 or something like that. So again, there just weren't a lot of perfect fits. It just stinks that the one guy who felt like a perfect fit was the guy that they passed on a couple times. But again, if they felt like okay, this corner class, we maybe like this guy, and, but we want to make sure the offense is set first, and the backup plan is always going to be reconcile with Ja, then again, I have no problem making this move because you have Walker, Tom, Watson, Dobbs on one side of the ball that are going to be free agents, and it's like, well, yeah, you kind of need to reload the offense, and that's where we're sitting right now. So Joseph Gleason says, what do you think about a 3-man battle for left tackle? Seems like the most important position to figure out before 2026 would be really nice to know earlier. Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind trying Belton out at tackle. I don't think he's going to survive out there. I just don't think he's quick enough. And again, the hand placement and the strike timing is just not where you want it to be for a left tackle. I think Morgan, to me, is better suited. I think he's a lot quicker out there to handle a lot of things at left tackle than Belton is. And again, Belton's just kind of the mean-spirited push guys around guy that totally fits for guard. But I don't mind trying them all out there. I just think it's going to very quickly be understood that Belton's going to be a better guard, and that they'll probably figure that out pretty quickly. But yeah, again, if Walker wins the job, he wins the job. He is currently, to me, the best left tackle in the room by a pretty decent margin. But hopefully Jordan Morgan can show something where in year 3, he can be the starter out there at left tackle, and you can feel pretty vindicated of like, yeah, this is why we took him in the first. So that's fine. I just don't know if Belton's going to be the guy to take control of that at left tackle. And Joseph says, let the losers duke it out for a right guard or be your swing tackle. I just wouldn't rule out John Williams, to be honest, of like, yeah, this could be the swing tackle for the long term. And again, it's a 7th round pick, so you shouldn't be expecting a lot out of it. But it's very clear Green Bay O-line evaluations have done well and have held up. Just so happens the one that might not is the 1st round pick of all the things, which it just tracks for them. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't mind that, but again, I think it's going to be very clear pretty early on of like, yeah, Belton's just got the build for right guard or for either guard spot really. Adam says 49ers last year sniped Green Bay in the 3rd, and Chiefs do the same. Yeah, that's pretty much how it felt. That's pretty much how it felt. Of like, yes, this is kind of the guy we want. This is kind of the guy we've been talking about. We've taken him in so many mocks of like, this is the player, and of course, just of course he does. Of course, he goes a little before we wanted him to. So, Adam says a lot of corners got overdrafted. Did they? I feel like they kind of tumbled on the board a lot more this go round. Like, obviously you had Hunter go 2nd, and he's unique, and he's not even, you can't even put him in the corner bucket really, because he's a completely unique player. If Barron becomes a really, really good nickel player with a little, maybe some inside out versatility, then it's not going to look overdrafted. And even if he is a really, really good nickel, like, I don't think people would be thinking anything about drafting a guy like DeJean and drafting a guy like Branch if they were fits at pick 20. Will Johnson went 47th. Azaria went in the 70s, I think. Revel went like 76th. Amos went 59th or 60th. Who am I missing? Porter. Who drafted Porter? Can't even think of who picked him now. Porter in the 3rd would probably, to me, have been an overdraft. Maybe Noel a little bit, but I liked Noel. So to me, he wasn't as much. I mean, I guess Parrish was taken pretty early as a nickel, but again, if he's really good, it's not going to look too much of an overdraft. So it just felt like there was a massive drop off, and this is what Joseph also saying here. Like, there wasn't a lot of guys. Yeah, I think there were a lot more guys with questions than there were like, and I think Wally was another one who went in the 3rd, which I didn't mind it. But it did feel like a massive drop-off, and then it was like, yeah, there's not really like, not itching to grab anybody at the moment on day 3. So, but yeah, I think, and again, on the defensive side of the ball, we kind of talked about already with Sorrell. It's like, could he just take Kingsley's spot in a year when, Kingsley's a free agent? Yep, pretty much. Perfect, that's cool. And then you have a Colin Oliver, who pass rush specialist in the 5th, It makes a lot of sense. And a continued investment in the O-line and receiver as these kind of cycles kind of end in the first contract, they put themselves in a pretty good position. As long as I think they can get Ja back and they feel comfortable enough with who they've added late with Brinson and undrafted free agency with Stackhouse of like stopping the run at a high level again. I think those are your main questions. And otherwise, I think it was a draft that, checked a lot of boxes. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this draft class. It felt strange early on, but I think you kind of step back and you go, yeah, what does the future look like? Oh yeah, we have kind of these holes potentially opening up. Okay, cool. And again, we kind of talked about tackle a little bit in the first before the festivities began of like, oh, is Simmons a possibility? Is Connerly a possibility? Is Banks a possibility if he falls? So we did kind of go through that a little bit. So it isn't shocking that, O-line was a part of the vision, really. So Joseph says, I do love our depth at O-line. If there ever was a spot to have high round bench players, it's O-line. Yeah. The other teams just watching over, looking on in envy that Green Bay's got enough players on the O-line where you don't have to trot out a guy who was a 6th round pick and shouldn't have ever been out in the field in year one in a playoff game. That's not a position you want yourself in. So to me, I don't think I'd go a year without drafting one ever. If I were a GM, I'd always be looking to add somebody on the offensive line every year, period. So, and yeah, I think the kind of like, why have they gone all offense remedied itself on day 3 for sure. Yep. Pass rusher who's kind of in the between of what Green Bay likes, just kind of on the lower end, and then true, like, go get me a sack, bender on the edge player in the 5th, and then a D tackle. Like, yeah, address the front 7, but also address, the kind of urgency and looming questions and free agents on the offensive side of the football. It felt very. You step back and look at the bigger picture outside of a 3-day stretch, and you go, "Oh yeah, this is something that had to happen." Again, you could haggle over who the players were in the class. I'm going to be interested again to see how it works for Josh Simmons off that injury in Kansas City, and how Amos does with the Commanders, and how Noel does with the Chiefs, unfortunately. And maybe other receivers, right? To see how Kyle Williams does with the Patriots as an outside receiver. Although I don't think Green Bay was going to be in on him at 180. But looking at Higgins, of course, and looking at Trey Harris, especially for the Chargers, as their 2nd round pick, of like, how's he doing? Obviously will be fun comparisons to make. So yeah, but that's really, I didn't have a whole lot. Yeah, this is Joseph. Yeah, this is the biggest question. If they feel like they can, if Brinson and Stackhouse can help your run defense, I feel like you're in really good shape. Of like, maybe we'll see something more from Brooks this year, and Wyatt, if he stays healthy all year, just picking up his 5th year option, like he could wreak havoc on this defensive line. So yeah, it'll be good to see. Maybe feel like it's a little thin there, just because I think Kenny's on the downswing. So it kind of feels like, well, it doesn't feel as like beefed up as maybe we'd like it to be on the defensive line, but at the very least they're doing something to add a few players to the mix. So but yeah, I don't think I have too much else. If you guys have other questions, you can obviously, or comments, you can obviously drop them in there. Again, hopefully the folks who have, the Packers fans who have always been on the other one will be able to come over here, and we'll be able to just be able to focus our talks a little bit more back to what we used to do. And yeah, we'll have a lot of fun over here for sure. So that's the plan. There's going to be some videos over here as well. We might do something on Simmons. We're going to do something about the interior of this offensive line and kind of how that could go. That'll be fun, and we might get some rookie review film rooms in here. So, guys like Coop and Evan Williams and Bullard and even Jordan Morgan will be taking looks at them and like, okay, how's this going? Where the progression? What needs to be fixed? All of that stuff. So that'll be fun to go through as well over here. Because again, this is going to be all Packers all the time. The other one is going to be a little more wide ranging, but there's going to be still Packers stuff over there as well. So it's going to be a fun, kind of few months leading up to training camp, I think, and preseason. So excited for it. And we're going to try to make this kind of, I think we're going to try to keep Wednesdays as a staple, maybe around 8:15. It was a little late today, but that's the plan going forward. All right. Joseph Gleason says, I'm actually pumped for Wyatt and Dobbs. I feel like they both actually took big steps forward. Just didn't get to show it for Dobbs with the suspension then plus concussions wasn't great. And then, Wyatt going down with injury definitely hurt. But the back half of the season for Wyatt, he was a pressure cooker in every sense. So I can't wait to see what year 2 with Halfley looks like for Wyatt, of like just getting to attack, and maybe the other Georgia guys they added will only help him feel like he's able to do that more. So I'm really excited to see what Wyatt can do, especially. And Dobbs is consistently taking, whether it be little steps or not, he's making moves up in a kind of a more linear progression, which you don't often see at receiver or at any other position. You see a lot of ups and downs and stuff. So it feels like Dobbs has been more steady and just taking some smaller steps forward. But again, Dobbs in a contract year. Can't wait to see what happens there, because maybe he plays himself into a deal, which I think would make things a little more complicated, but you never know. You never know. Golden wearing 22. Not ideal. Not ideal for the future, but maybe again he's bringing a retro number back, and we'll all look foolish there. But I do think I'm getting that jersey just because he's wearing. He is wearing 22, but it also shows the 22 drafts in between first round receivers, which I think is also a cool little nugget there. I don't think that's why he did it, but it just turned out that way, I think. But it'll be fun. And so with that being said, if anybody's got any last things, we will go over them. But, maybe a little bit of a shorter show tonight, which I'm totally fine with. It's been that kind of last week and a half or so where the shows have been very, very long, but very, very fun. And just trying to continue to kind of get that energy back a little bit and just kind of recover. So Belton video will be out tomorrow on the other channel, which I think all of you should know, and there will be a couple others from different teams for fun just to take a look at, and it will be the same on Friday and probably Saturday, Sunday into next week as well. So there should be a lot of content to consume post draft here, and maybe we'll get to some UDFAs. We'll see, but really excited. It was a great week. It's great to have Matthew Golden on this team and everyone else, of course, but it fires the imagination on offense and on defense. And that's really what you want to see is as far as like, can you add other wrinkles to just gain a little bit more of an advantage, right? On both sides of the ball. And Green Bay's in a contending window where, it may not feel like they are to others to the outside, but of like making the playoffs back-to-back seasons with the youngest roster, adding more rookies to the mix again. But like, they're in a position to go get, as Josh Jacobs was talking about, go get your wide receiver one. Go see what that looks like. Go continue to build the offensive line. Go find that, situational pass rusher to help your defense. Like, they were in position to do those things. And again, hopefully Ja's back and it feels like the defense is more complete. So thank you guys a lot for this one. It feels weird, a shorter show, but I don't mind it because I'm sure you've heard, 17 different angles on the Packers draft class to this point. So, thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Adam Huddle, who was in here as well, and to the others who may have just been kind of lurking and sitting in. Hit that thumbs up if you can on the way out. Let other people know about the channel as well as we continue to grow this Packers only one, and it should be a lot of fun. But thank you guys again. Your support is awesome, and we at the very least we'll catch you on the main channel in the comments or back here next week Wednesday. So again, thank you guys so much, and go Packers.